All right, let's talk about constitutions. And I know what you might be thinking. Dusty old legal documents, right? Well, forget that. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful human stories there is. How people, often after years of bitter conflict, actually come together to write the rulebook for their future. This is the story of constitutional design.
But first, let's start with a really tough question. Seriously, how do you build trust between enemies? Imagine you've been fighting an oppressor for your entire life, and now you're suddenly supposed to live side by side as equals. How is that even possible? How can you be sure that the promises being made today will actually be kept tomorrow? This single massive question is exactly why constitutions exist in the first place. And the answer really is this: a constitution. It's a set of supreme, written down rules that everyone, and I mean everyone, agrees to live by. It's the tool that helps turn all that fear and mistrust into coordination and maybe even a shared future. You could say it's the hero of our story today. Okay, so to really get this, let's look at maybe the most powerful, most incredible example in recent history: the birth of a democratic constitution in South Africa, a nation that was once completely defined by brutal racial division. Just listen to these words from Nelson Mandela, said while he was on trial for treason. This just shows you how high the stakes were. This wasn't some simple political disagreement. This was a fight for the very soul of the country, a fight people were literally willing to die for.
And for daring to dream of a free society, the regime tried to silence him. He spent this many years in prison. 27 years. Just let that sink in for a moment. More than a quarter of a century. That number, it represents the immense, unbelievable personal cost of the fight against the brutal system of apartheid.
So what exactly was apartheid? Well, it was a particularly nasty system of racial discrimination, all enforced by the white minority government. Non-whites, who were the vast majority of the population, had no voting rights. They were legally kept separate from whites, on buses, on beaches, in hospitals, you name it. It was called segregation. And this really shows you the long, hard road it was. After decades of struggle, protest, and international pressure, the white regime finally realized it couldn't hold on to power through force anymore. Mandela was freed, and just 4 years later, the nation was completely reborn as a democracy. And what happened next is, well, it's just mind-blowing. The very same people who had enforced decades of oppression and the people who had led the freedom struggle, they actually sat down together at the same table. Instead of revenge, they chose to talk. Together, they drafted one of the most forward-thinking constitutions in the world, literally building a shared future out of the ashes of a divided past. Now look, this need for a common rulebook, it's not just a South African story. Let's jump over to another huge new nation that was facing its own set of massive challenges: India. The story of its constitution is all about how this vast, incredibly diverse country forged a single identity after colonial rule. Now, what's so interesting is when you compare the two. You've got South Africa trying to heal these deep, deep racial wounds between oppressor and oppressed. And then you have India trying to create unity out of this unbelievable diversity, right in the middle of a traumatic religious split. Totally different histories, right? But the fundamental need was exactly the same. And for India, the situation was just chaotic. The country was born out of a violent partition that killed at least 1 million people. 1 million. On top of that, the British just left behind hundreds of these semi-independent princely states and basically said, good luck. The future was completely up in the air. But even in all that chaos, India's leaders did something amazing. They put together something called a constitutional assembly, and it was a real reflection of the country itself. It wasn't just a few powerful men in a room. Its 299 members came from literally every part of society. So this constitution wasn't just handed down from on high, it was built piece by piece through years of debate by the people's representatives. Okay, so we've got these two epic stories, these two new nations born from conflict. Which brings us to the big question. Whether it's South Africa or India, what do these rulebooks, these constitutions, actually do? What's their job? What are the fundamental things they have to get right to hold a country together? You know, it really comes down to these 4 main jobs. First, and this is the big one, it has to create trust so different kinds of people can actually live and work together. Second, it lays out the blueprint for the government, how it's formed, who gets power. Third, and this is so important, it puts a leash on that government's power. It sets clear limits and protects the rights of citizens. And finally, it points toward the future. It's a statement of a country's aspirations, the kind of good society its people want to build. And that last part, the aspirations bit, the best place to see that is in something called the preamble. You can think of it like the mission statement for the whole country. It's the philosophy, the very soul of the document. So let's just quickly look at 3 core values from India's famous preamble. First up, sovereignty. This is a huge deal. It basically says the people are in charge. Not some king from far away, not some other country calling the shots. The power to decide the nation's future rests right here, at home, with the people. Next, secular. Now, in a country with as much religious diversity as India, this is absolutely essential. It doesn't mean the government is anti-religion. It just means the government doesn't play favorites. It's like a referee. It has to treat all faiths with equal respect, making sure every citizen is free to believe, or not believe, however they choose. And number 3, democratic. This is the big promise that the government is, well, ours. It's run by the people, for the people. It means we all get equal political rights, we get to pick our leaders, and this is key, we have the power to hold them accountable if they mess up. And all of this brings us right back to where we began, with Nelson Mandela. These words, they just nail it, don't they? A constitution does 2 things at once. It's a solemn promise to never, ever go back to the horrors and injustices of the past. But it's also more than that. It's a roadmap for the future, a charter for transforming a nation. It looks back to heal, and it looks forward to build. So when you boil it all down, a constitution isn't just a document. It's a promise a nation makes to itself, a promise of justice, of liberty, of equality. And that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? For any country with a constitution, how well are we living up to that promise today?